Redistributing the global economy. The COVID-19 global pandemic caused several unexpected disruptions within the global economy. In doing so, it highlighted and confirmed the relationship between humanitarian issues and economic realities. It also placed emphasis on the unsustainability of economic inequality. Economic inequality is a compounding issue that continues to undermine the performance of the global economy and in certain instances compromise access to basic human rights. However, it also acts as an aid to further our thinking about the current economic system and perhaps reconstruct it to allow it to be more accessible, sustainable, and equitable. I believe through a multidimensional approach, there can be an effective redistribution of the global economy. The remedies and proposals that I'll be suggesting today have been extracted from the daily visible inequalities that play out in South Africa. South Africa is an unfortunate integration of contrasting realities. Perhaps there's no greater example of this than what plays out in the education system. The discrepancies in access and quality to education, often referred to as the education gap, is not a problem unique to South Africa, but is a growing global problem. To address the education gap, which is the first consideration for effective redistribution of the global economy, education must be accessible and must be of quality. Now, when I speak of the quality of education, this can mean a facet of things. But to me, particularly, it relates to the content value derived from the education curriculum, to which I'm a firm believer that the scope of literacy provided by education must be expanded. It must include digital literacy and financial literacy. Digital literacy is fundamental in providing people with the required skills needed to effectively engage with the digital economy that we find ourselves in. Financial literacy is fundamental to give people the required competencies required to intentionally engage with the market, to allow them to expand their participation in the economy from being a consumer, employee, or debtor, and play a more active role as an investor and entrepreneur, as someone who directly contributes to economic growth. Once we've crafted this quality education curriculum, it must be accessible. And to this, there are some recommendations. One of the recommendations is to supplement some of the problems that arise from the education gap, is that learning should be facilitated online. And this is a fair proposition. However, it's limited in its prerequisite requirement for digital infrastructure to give effect to accessibility. Digital infrastructure, my second consideration for how we must redistribute the global economy, is fundamental. Digital infrastructure relates to the different services, such as Wi-Fi, your internet cables, and your telecommunication lines that allow for information technology to work. Now, digital infrastructure is fundamental because it's proven to be a great ally in creating new entry points to the market. A good example of this is the acceleration that's been experienced in entrepreneurship due to developments within digital infrastructure, of which entrepreneurship is fundamental and key for the redistribution of the global economy. Entrepreneurship is where we're going to source most of our solutions for ongoing social and economic problems. More obviously, entrepreneurship, for example, will create jobs and that will combat unemployment. Also, through entrepreneurship and the products and services created by entrepreneurs, we'll also get new solutions for ongoing socio-economic problems. A good example of this is the developments taking place within the financial technology space. Within the fintech space, there are thousands of entrepreneurs who are creating solutions to create innovative alternatives for financing options to address gaps within the financial industry, and therefore furthering financial inclusion. So all the things I've mentioned, a redress of education, a development within digital infrastructure, and the supporting of entrepreneurs, all need capital behind it to be effectively implemented. And to this, I have a response: impact investing. Impact investing is regarded as investments made in projects that have a social and/or environmental benefit and also produce a financial return. A good example of this is the $12.7 billion that's been issued into the market through social bonds, which is an example of impact investments. Also, more recently in August, Alphabet, the parent company of Google, also issued $5.7 billion into the market through social bonds to finance and support social projects that have a great benefit. Now, this shows the capacity of impact investing as a viable source to implement the redistribution of the global economy. Also, another benefit of impact investing is that it alleviates states from the financial burden required to finance sustainable development. Furthermore, because impact investing has a strategic focus on delivering a positive social impact, it perhaps is the best positioned to introduce more diversity within the entrepreneurship space. And this is key to deconstruct some of the economic homogenies that sometimes monopolize over the global economy. Now, COVID-19 was a global reminder of the devastating effects and impacts of inequality. But for some of us, like myself, living in South Africa, the devastating effects and impacts of inequality are so obnoxiously visible. There is no need for a reminder. However, South Africa is not bound by the single narrative of inequality. If anything, South Africa is a symbol of tenacity, of great social and economic capacity. A good example of this is highlighted by what plays out in the under-resourced informal township economy, that in 2018 was able to generate $6 billion in value. It's things like this that make me wonder, what could happen if we addressed the education gap, if we furthered development of digital infrastructure, if we supported our entrepreneurs, and if we had a greater focus on impact investing? I can't help to think that the township economy would scale with ease and further integrate into the global economy. That is why I'm convinced that if we address the education gap, we finance and support the further developments of digital infrastructure and support entrepreneurs and focus on impact investing, there can be a global restructure of the global economy that allows the global economy to be accessible, equitable, and sustainable. Thank you.